5, 4, 3, 2,
Manchester
1,
United have
0.
reached the promised land.
Good morning, everybody here on United People's TV for what is no doubt going to be quite a difficult conversation that we're all going to have around Mason Greenwood. And it's a conversation that we all need to have as a community. After yesterday, the Crown Prosecution Service confirmed that all charges against Mason Greenwood had been dropped and the case had been dismissed. What I'm going to do this morning, right, it's going to be a slightly different show to normal. I mean, I think normally I dive into the comments. I bring all your comments up on screen. It's massively interactive. I'm not saying I'm not going to do that in this show, but I'm going to try and stick to as many facts as I possibly can. And I'll speak about them through the show because we need to, as United fans, we kind of need to understand what can happen next, what will happen next, and when will it happen. As United fans, from a footballing perspective, that's what you want to know. So that's what I'm going to try and run through this morning. Before I do dive into that, I want to say a quick something on the video I did yesterday. Now, that video yesterday was where I sort of let my opinion be known. And anybody who watched that video, anybody I suppose who's listened to anything that I've said on the Mason Greenwood situation will know my standpoint. I don't think I can forget the fact that I've heard that audio note. Now, I understand there are quite a few of you who take a very different standpoint. Innocent until proven guilty, because that's the mantra of the justice system, right? It's very difficult to apply that same concept here, in my opinion, to this case, or just cases of this nature. And there's something I want to bring up, which is quite important here to understand before what I'm going to do. And the main part of this whole show, right, is going to be around a very detailed article from The Athletic on what has happened from a factual perspective, everything that's been said by the Crown Prosecution Service, by the everything. I'm going to run through that so you can try and understand. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. But I think this, by the way, this information is directly from the Crown Prosecution Service website, and it's around false allegations. And I think this is probably at the core of my feeling around here, because innocent till proven guilty, does that mean that it didn't happen, or does that mean that there's not enough evidence for a prosecution to successfully go through in court? If we go over here and we read this is from the CPS about false allegations. If a case is not charged by the CPS or is stopped before a trial, this does not mean the complainant made a false allegation. A decision to stop a case on evidential grounds does not mean that an allegation is false. It means that the case does not meet the evidential test required to put an allegation before a jury under the Code for Crown Prosecutors. And for me, this is quite an important distinction. And as I said, probably at the core of my feeling around this case and why I've said what I've said. This is an article that, look, this runs through a report from the CPS based in 2013. So the stats and the figures aren't completely up to date, but it gives you a bit of an understanding of how difficult this whole scenario is. A CPS report published in 2013 showed that over a 17-month period, there were 5,651 prosecutions for rape. And during the same period, there were 35 prosecutions for making false allegations. And that's now going to be what a lot of people are suggesting here, because as we know, key witnesses have retracted statements, new materials come to light, which I'm going to run through and explain this morning. But you can see there, it's a very small percentage of allegations are proven to be false. And for me, that's quite an important distinction to discuss here this morning. There's a super chat there. Let me see, make sure it's appropriate, and then I can read it out. Ray, your personal feeling here, you're saying, I'm not sure Mason can play for United due to the nature of the situation. And I'll be honest, Manchester United are in a very, very difficult position. Very difficult, because from a legal perspective, as far as we're aware now, there is nothing that is stopping Manchester United from bringing Mason Greenwood back into the squad. However, there are massive implications from a variety of different areas. And that is why now, in this show this morning, if you can give me now maybe 10, 15 minutes, all right? And then I'll try and I'll try and head down to the comments and involve you a little bit more. But I want to run through this article from The Athletic about what's happened from a factual perspective, everything that's been said, everything that we know, all the new information that's come to light yesterday. And there's a bit more in here than probably you know. And then we can have a discussion at the end of it. And what I will say here before I start is, in the interest of being as balanced as I possibly can on this channel, which is what I always try and do. Sometimes I don't do it, but, you know, I'm guilty of that. And yesterday I did a video with my personal opinion and my personal stance on this Greenwood situation. But I'm going to be having an interview with a lawyer that's going to be coming out on Sunday morning, where I'm going to speak about it from a completely impartial point of view. I'm not going to have anything in my opinion. I'm going to go in there and say, right, okay, from a legal perspective, present all the evidence from both sides, everything that we know has happened, and the sort of precedent of what happens inside these cases. That's what that interview, I'm going to release that as a podcast. I'm going to do that as a video that goes out on Sunday morning. Because, yeah, I want to try and, as I say, take a step back, remove opinion from it, and be as impartial as possible. So that's what that interview is designed to do. There's another super chat there. Jibak, this is your opinion here. You're saying, I'm deeply conflicted on this one. On one hand, we had the law that heard both sides, examined evidence, and couldn't find enough to prosecute. On the other, we heard and saw the clips. This is unbelievably hard. When it comes to the point you've made there about finding enough evidence to prosecute, I mean, I spoke about it in my video yesterday. You're looking at around about 1% of sexual assault cases that convert into a prosecution, because they're very private crimes when they do occur. So a lot of the time it ends up being one voice against another voice. And from a legal perspective, and the words beyond reasonable doubt are used in a criminal court of law, right? So if it goes to a trial, in a trial, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the crime happened. That's the whole point of a trial, right? It's very, very difficult in sexual assault cases to do that, given that the evidence sometimes relies on the witness statements of the two opposing parties. And therefore, you can't really, from a beyond reasonable doubt perspective, prove that. Ricky, you're saying that the best thing about your content, whether we agree or not, you always stick to the fact. Look, Ricky, I can't say that I stuck to the facts yesterday, all right? The video that I did yesterday was not particularly on the facts. The video yesterday was very much my personal and emotional opinion and how I am going to approach this. But what I'm going to do now, as I said, let's run through this article from The Athletic, because this is where you'll get a full understanding of everything that's happened. And as I said, there's probably a couple of things inside this that you might not know. So I apologize if I don't answer too many comments in the next 5-10 minutes, but I want to read through this because it's very, very important. All right. Mason Greenwood, we all know, has had charges including rape and assault against him discontinued by the Crown Prosecution Service. Well, we know that that's all happened yesterday. Okay. Just over a year after Greenwood was first arrested, amid allegations surrounding images and videos, GMP announced criminal proceedings against a 21-year-old man in connection with an investigation opened in January 2022 have today been discontinued by the CPS. The CPS is the agency responsible for conducting criminal prosecutions in England and Wales. Last October, Greenwood was charged with attempted rape, assault occasioning actual bodily harm, and controlling and coercive behaviour. All three counts related to the same complainant. A statement released on behalf of Greenwood yesterday. Now you'll know this happened. I believe the statement was given to the Sun. I'm not sure. I think it was. He goes, "I am relieved that this matter is now over, and I would like to thank my family and loved ones and friends for their support. There will be no further comment at this time." So that was the official statement from Mason Greenwood after this was announced. Now, what do we know about the case? This is quite an important point that the Athletics made here, and you'll notice that I've not mentioned her name either. I'll be honest, it's because I forgot her name. But I think it's right to point out here that any victim or anybody involved, those who complain of certain sexual offences are entitled to anonymity for life. A spokesperson from the CPS told The Athletic this yesterday. In this case, a combination of the withdrawal of key witnesses and new material that came to light meant that there was no longer a realistic prospect of conviction. In these circumstances, we are under duty to stop the case, which means that the Crown Prosecution Service, who were the ones leading this case, have decided that the evidence they've now got in front of them, they are not confident of winning that case in a court of law. In fact, to the point where they have to throw the case out or stop the case at this particular moment in time. That's what's happened here. At a hearing at Manchester and Salford's Magistrate Court on the 17th of October, the court was told the complainant had made allegations against Greenwood following an ABE, which is an Achieving Best Evidence interview. A video recorded interview with a vulnerable or intimidated witness where the recording is intended to be played as evidence in court at a later date. In January of that year, that's when she did it. She had then provided a retraction statement in April, which, if I'm reading correctly, means that she's retracting on what she said during this Achieving Best Evidence interview. Acting for Greenwood, barrister David Toll said his client had answered questions during police interviews, provided passwords for phones, and surrendered his passport, but had breached his bail conditions for many months. Now, this is an important aspect that we can have a little conversation about here. He said the matter had been raised with police by Greenwood's solicitor on more than one occasion, and the player's solicitor had acted quite properly by informing the police of the intended publication of a photograph in a national newspaper that showed Greenwood breaking those conditions on Friday, October the 14th. District Judge Mark Hadfield called it a flagrant breach of bail and criticised police for doing nothing about it. Rebecca Jane Macaulay, prosecuting, said there is a vulnerable complainant who now wants to retract her complaint. Now, we don't know the exact terms on which Greenwood breached his bail, but I believe, well, as far as I'm aware, it's to do with contacting the complainant. And according to what we're reading here, he had breached his bail conditions for many months. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. It wasn't just an individual phone call, a message. It sounds like he was in contact with her for months, right? The judge called it a flagrant breach of bail, criticized the police for doing nothing about it. And then, as I said, the prosecutor said there is a vulnerable complainant who now wants to retract her statement. And without that, we don't know who the key witness or the witness that retracted her, but you're going from an assumption perspective, that's what we're doing. I know assumption is very, very dangerous and not exactly what I'm doing here, but I'm not sure what other witnesses there would be in this case. Hashim, right. You're saying this. You're saying we all respected the law when Mason was a suspect. We should keep the same energy now that the very same law has set him free. We are not in a position to destroy a young man who was set free, but set free. I'm not sure you've seen the word innocent used anywhere. The wording that you have sued is that the cases charges have been dropped and the case has been dismissed. And again, I think this is where it's becoming extreme. What kind of fucking dumb comment is that? Oh yeah, lads, let's just move on. Just forget about it. Go on, let's move on. Come the fuck on. I have to call out some dumbass comments when I see it, and that's one of them. No, I won't move on. Just like Manchester United are not currently moving on and are currently dealing with the situation. But that is part of what we know so far. Okay. In terms of what's, man, I've got some really, really crazy comments down there. I think I might just, I'm just going to ignore them for the time being. Let me run through the full story here for you. How did Manchester United respond to the charges being dropped? Several hours after the statement from the CPS, United released one of their own. saying Manchester United notes the decision of the Crown Prosecution Service that all charges against Mason Greenwood have been dropped. The club will now conduct its own process before determining the next steps. We will not make any further comment until that process is complete. And that's where we currently are. Mason Greenwood, the charges have been dropped yesterday. Mason Greenwood has released a statement. Manchester United have released a statement. What's going to be the next steps? What's going to happen and when's it going to happen, right? How long will Manchester United's inquiry take and what's it going to look like? United are not putting a timescale on the investigation, but it is unlikely to drag on. Glazer family are being kept aware of developments, but Richard Arnold, as chief executive, is ultimately responsible for the inquiry. He is likely to delegate to his senior team, which includes other figures like Colette Roche and Annie Hale. United took the view that Greenwood is like any of their other employees, so it would not be necessary to seek an external or independent investigation. Okay? The club wants to understand the circumstances around allegations that were made more than a year ago, which will require historic knowledge and therefore could involve former employees as they seek to find the correct sources for the information they need. So effectively, what Manchester United are doing here is United will conduct their own investigation now. United won't just simply, okay, well, the Crown Prosecution has dropped all the charges. Great. Right, let's move on. Manchester United will do their own investigation. They will speak and they will take what has been said by the CPS and they will now conduct everything themselves. And an important part to, because you might question, say, well, why are they only doing this now? This has been going on for a long, long time. Even though Greenwood was charged in October 2022, United have waited until now to open their inquiry. There was a feeling that it would have been inappropriate to engage with Greenwood during the time he was under criminal investigation. It is unclear whether members of the men's first team squad or its leadership group will be consulted about what should happen next. Okay? Now, as far as we know, what is happening now for Mason Greenwood? He will not be training with or playing for Manchester United until an outcome is determined. And he's been told, as has been the case for a long time, to stay away from Carrington. Given that the charges have been dropped and pending the outcome of the internal inquiry, it is likely the club will be thinking about what happens next and how, if it ends up this way, he is reintegrated into the squad, as well as how to support the player. We will continue paying his salary. And there was a club representative at his bail hearing last October. So Greenwood won't be playing for Manchester United until, I'm just saying, a hypothetical situation here. We're looking, because the charges have been dropped, everything is a possibility now. All right. My own personal stance on how I think Manchester United should be dealing. It may not be what actually happens, because it's a personal opinion. I might head down to the comments here and see if there's anything I've missed. And there you're saying innocent or guilty, considering our female staff, female players and female fans, is it right that he represents the club? That is the question. That will be a question that is happening behind the scenes at Manchester United. I don't think we've heard anything from any of the Man United's women's team yet, but I imagine we will. Inaki, you're saying, I trust more on Ten Hag than the club itself for the next move. The Glazers are the owner still, and they will see that Mason Greenwood is an asset for his talent. I don't know why. I'll be honest, football clubs aren't exactly great bastions for moral standpoints, are they? Man, every single football club. Manchester United will be determining what is best for the football club. And that is what is going to be the driving force in all of this. Daryl Hart, man, well, I'm not answering. No, I'm not answering that question. That you're not going to get those words out of my mouth. Listen, I don't know what that attempt is. Or you're saying it would be. Well, I'm not going to say that. You don't think he should be playing for the club again. Not only will it affect the sponsors of the future. Look, this. Let me run through and complete this article here, because quite a few of your comments are down there. And Daryl, I don't know what you're trying to do there. You're trying to put words in my mouth. No, I know what I've heard. I know what I've seen. And if that's not true, then you're accusing her of falsifying. And I tell you what, it must be difficult from a court of law perspective, because technology has moved on so much, right? Deep fakes. We've all seen the deep fake videos. We've all seen. I'm not sure. There's a random YouTube channel called Jolly. I don't know how I've randomly watched it. It's like these two guys do like South Korean content as well, and one of them deep faked an entire audio book based off the voice of his co-presenter as a bit of a joke because he didn't want to do an audio book, and it was like he did it. He completely and utterly replicated his voice. So I think from a court of law, if you're a lawyer, I think it's very easy to cast doubt on anything audio and maybe even anything video these days because of how far technology has come. It's mad. It really is. Let's go back. I haven't run through this full article yet. Will he play for Manchester United again? And of course, we know at this stage it is too early to say. United have to complete their internal investigation. And this is what I was saying down there, right? It doesn't really matter about what the Glazers said about that. This is effectively what's going to be driving whether or not Mason Greenwood plays for Manchester United again. Moral implications, I don't really think will be the leading conversation point behind the scenes between Richard Arnold, between the board members about whether or not Mason Greenwood plays for United again after this investigation is completed from an internal perspective. United must weigh up whether the potential damage to the club's reputation or public relations risk of continuing to employ Greenwood outweighs the financial benefit or his potential impact on the pitch for Erik ten Hag's team. What we do know is that Greenwood is an exceptionally talented young footballer. And if we're speaking from a purely footballing perspective, I think Mason Greenwood's the most talented individual that we've seen come out of our academy. He's probably the most talented that I've seen come out of the academy in my own personal time of watching Manchester United. I think his ceiling is much higher than Marcus Rashford's, and look how high Marcus Rashford is now. There's a couple of super chats here. I just want to see if they're appropriate before I read them out. 1 second here. Right, there's one down there. Sibbo, you're saying, I urge Karma, wait for more facts, and audio can be edited, pictures can be photoshopped. Wait on more facts and be careful how we assert innocence or guilt. Well, I'm not really sure what more facts will come out, how much more information we're going to be told from the public perspective. I'm not sure how much more we deserve to know. It's very personal. But look, there's still more to read inside this. And this is an important part, right? Can Manchester United sack Mason Greenwood? Let me read both of the... There's two parts to this. Can Manchester United sack Mason Greenwood? Can Mason Greenwood sue Manchester United if he is sacked? I'm going to read both sides of it. As I said, I'm trying to be as impartial as I can here, but I know I'm not being that good at it, I'll be honest. Alex Clark, an employment law specialist, did not want to comment specifically on United and Greenwood, but provided a general overview of the options available. Even if a player hasn't been found guilty in criminal proceedings, a club will usually still want to carry out or continue its own internal process to determine whether they take any disciplinary action themselves, which may include terminating the player's contract. Termination of a player's contract is one possible outcome, but the club would need to be able to justify it from an employment law perspective and show they had a fair reason for doing so. The standard of wrongdoing required to terminate an employment contract is not the same as the standard for a criminal conviction. So if it had led to a criminal conviction, it would have been Manchester United would have had far stronger grounds to terminate the contract, is what it's saying there. And where details of a player's conduct are made public during criminal proceedings, a club may have enough evidence to terminate for gross misconduct. But then, on the contrary, could Mason Greenwood sue Manchester United if they choose to sack him? If a player feels he has been dismissed unfairly, he could bring a claim for unfair dismissal, and he would effectively be claiming for the value of whatever is left to run on his fixed-term playing contract. Now, remember that Mason Greenwood, throughout this entire time where he hasn't been at Manchester United, hasn't been training, he has been being paid by Manchester United. That hasn't changed. The Employment Tribunal caps the amount of money that can be awarded for these types of claims, but a player could conceivably make a similar claim in the civil courts to try and recover the full amount. That said, even if the player's claim was successful, if he secured a new club in the meantime, it is unlikely he would recover the full value, as some of his earnings would have been mitigated. Right. Effectively, that's the end of that article. And that's pretty much everything that we know so far. This is such a fucked situation. It really is, right? Manchester United, as a football, I don't know what we're going to do. I really don't. Because we've all, as I said, we've all heard what happened. We've all seen what happened. Well, partly. So we have all made our own judgments on that. And I go back to my comments about the CPS, about how little any accusations turn into prosecutions. And it's I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I really, really don't know what the outcome's going to be. Manchester United will be conducting an internal investigation, and we have no time frame on that. As I said a little bit before I read through that full sort of synopsis and summary of everything that's happened and everything that we can expect to happen in the coming week or weeks, we don't know. I want to reiterate that I will be having a separate conversation with a lawyer that will be an interview that goes out on this channel on Sunday morning. And inside that interview, I'm going to try my absolute best to completely take any opinion out of it and to try and just look at it from the legality perspective, which is going to be difficult because, as I said, this is where the there is like a blending between legal standpoints and moral standpoints, and that I think is where the two I can't tell you the amount of messages I've had since I put the video out yesterday, just me personally, right? And some people have been saying some wild shit. Some wild stuff. I really kind of want to move on from this, but I know it's a very difficult thing to move on from. I don't mean like move on from this. I mean just move on from this conversation we're having here this morning. I hope that I've presented as much as I possibly can here today, a bit of a summary of everything that we know that's in the public eye, that has been said, that has been done, and with public knowledge. Yesterday, I didn't do that. Yesterday, I gave my own personal opinion on this situation. Today, I've absolutely no doubt that my opinion's crept into everything I've been saying here too. But I hope that you've sort of at least understood maybe a little bit more about the whole case, about everything that's happened, certainly in to do with the key statements being withdrawn and to do with the breaches of bail, how long and what they were, how long they went on for, how they impacted the case, the new material that's come to light. And we don't know what that new material is, do we? We can't make any assumptions about what that new material is, but we don't know what it is. The next time I'll speak about this will be after Manchester United release an official statement, after Manchester United have conducted their investigations and we know what's going to be happening. Because at that point, we will know whether Mason Greenwood will play for Manchester United again. And if at that point that is Manchester United's decision, then we're going to have a conversation about that. Either way, we're going to have a conversation about it. All right. Some mad comments down here. Mad, really is mad. But look, let's see what happens at the end of this. Is there a right or wrong thing to? Joris, you're saying you thank you for covering it respectfully. I don't know whether I'm covering it respectfully, man. The amount of people down here that are just absolutely slagging because they don't like my standpoint. And I suppose that's kind of what I did in my video yesterday when I was so vociferous in my own standpoint. But that's when it comes down to, I suppose, where you stand from the innocent till proven guilty in this. I'm not going to go backwards, right? I'm not going to go backwards on that. In in an attempt to move this forward, the last 5 minutes of the show, let's talk about something else that happened this week. And Marcel Sabitzer was announced yesterday. Well, it wasn't announced yesterday, but his first interview was yesterday. He has trained with Manchester United's first team. He was there on Thursday. By the way, Diogo Dalot returned to training as well. So fingers crossed, we're going to see him in the squad. Do you think we're going to be seeing Marcel Sabitzer start against Crystal Palace, or do you reckon we'll see him in the squad on Saturday? You let me know in the comments, and I'll try and read some of your comments out. I apologize. Yeah, man. This Greenwood situation isn't one that you can just brush over. One that you can shrug your shoulders and say, move on. You can't. All right? You just can't. But Sabitzer, all right? He has been given the new number 15. And the last time we made a January signing and he was given number 15, he did pretty well. He did pretty well. So fingers crossed. I mean, I'm not even going to slightly suggest. I'm not even going to slightly suggest that Sabitzer is going to have anywhere near the same sort of impact or career at Manchester United that Nemanja Vidic did. But it's just, I like that photo because they look quite similar. Pointing in the same direction. And fingers crossed he can have the same sort of impact. Now, what I'm going to run through here is Marcel Sabitzer's first interview as a Manchester United player. It gives us a little bit of insight into his mentality. And I tell you what, I think you're going to like it. So let's run through this interview together. This is what he said. He said, I will give my all for the jersey. Should have said shirt. I'm very happy to be here and I will give my best and we will see what happens. But I am here to win trophies. Good start. He goes, Manchester United is a big club with fantastic fans. Old Trafford is a big stadium. I played there once. It was empty. But I felt it was very nice. It's a great feeling to have the badge on my chest and I'm looking forward to it. In his own words, Sabitzer is a box-to-box player and creative in the offensive third. He adds, you can have a lot of expectations from me. Good shots, duels, and I'm excited to be on the pitch at Old Trafford. Regardless of what happens during his time here, he said, look, that's history. I talked to my agents before. I'm the first Austrian. I feel proud. I will do my best. And I think there was a comment that came out from, I'll be honest, that wasn't the full interview. That was actually quite crap. I thought it was going to be the everything that he said. That was a crap. There was much better parts of that interview. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sabitzer can do in a United shirt, because Christian Eriksen is a brilliant, creative, playmaking footballer. His ability to see balls, his vision and his execution of those passes is incredible. One of the best. But there's one thing he does lack, and because of the player he is, he's never really had that much pace. But he's somebody who can be played around. And it's kind of happened at United a little bit. If Christian Eriksen is targeted, little 1-2 around Christian Eriksen, you can get around him. Sabitzer, for me, is going to be, I think, a very good signing. I think given that United effectively panicked, I was reading an article from Rob Dawson from ESPN this morning about what United did. It was considered the emergency protocol. Like, basically United hit the big red button, said Eriksen's out for 3-4 months. Who can we sign? And because things are starting to improve behind the scenes at our club, we were able to draw up a list of potentially viable players, considering we had no money, right? That's an important part here. We had no money. We were able to draw up a list of viable options that we could go after. And we got the Sabitzer deal done very, very quickly. And it's effectively what we did, maybe not so much as a panic red button with Weghorst, but we identified players who fit the system, the profiles suited what Ten Hag needed, and we went and got one. And Weghorst, in my opinion, has had a very positive impact since he came to the club. I'm hoping, you're hoping, that this lad here, Marcel Sabitzer, is going to have the same sort of impact in midfield that Weghorst had in attack. I hope so anyway. What's your feeling on him? I personally think it's a good signing. I personally think it's a good signing. I'm looking forward to seeing him play in a United shirt. But yeah, we're in the League Cup final now. Now the League Cup is buried until the 26th of February, so 23 days. We've got Crystal Palace on Saturday, then Leeds midweek. Was it Barcelona? No, it's not Barcelona, is it? Leeds midweek, and then Leeds away, and then I think we've got Barcelona away, and then after that, I can't remember who we've got in between. Is it Leicester? I think it's Leicester. Then we've got Leicester, and then we've got Barcelona at home 3 days before the League Cup final. February's going to be wild. Really, really crazy. I mean, on and off the pitch at Manchester United this season has been an absolute roller coaster. And we're about to get new owners. We're about to head into the cup final. So from a footballing perspective, it's full tilt. And yeah, this Mason Greenwood situation has, well, it's huge. What Manchester United do next, we're going to find out, okay? We're going to find out. This is the last time that I would like to speak about the Mason Greenwood situation. I'm not going to apologize for my standpoint. I know why my standpoint is there, okay? But I can, even if I disagree with you, I can understand why there are so many of you who have your standpoint. And that's why I'm going to have that interview with the lawyer to try and sort of straight down the middle, present both sides of the argument. I don't think I fairly did that in my video yesterday. I stuck to the facts today. But let's find out what happens next. Dave, you're saying, didn't we go in for him in the summer? I'm sure his name was mentioned along with someone else. Hey, look, Sabitzer, I said it at the time, it is absolutely a peak Ralph Rangnick signing. I think Ralph even wanted him. I'm sure he was linked with us before. I think you're kind of right with that. I'm looking forward to seeing him, and we need him in that midfield. At the moment, we're looking at, well, we've got Casemiro and Fred, who are the two fit central midfielders, because McTominay's injured and Eriksen's injured. McTominay won't be here for a few weeks. I'm looking forward to seeing what this lad can do. And if he can have the same sort of impact on our midfield as Weghorst did in our attack, then you're looking at 2 January signings who have really helped us and will help us in the second half of the season. Let's find out to it. I'm looking forward to it. I apologize, anybody, if I missed Super Chats today. I apologize if I missed anything. I probably did, but I didn't have the comments up on screen whilst I was reading through a lot of that article because I thought it was important really just to focus on it. I know it's a different show today. As I said one more time, I'm not going to apologize for my standpoint on this, but I'm very much going to be interested to see what Manchester United's take is, where we go next, because this is an extremely difficult situation. I imagine, well, I suppose it depends on what happens in the internal investigation, what they find, who they speak to. But I do think that at the end of the day, Manchester United are probably going to be deciding from a PR perspective more than anything else. That's true. Well, that's my opinion of the truth anyway. But look, thank you all for tuning in today. I'll speak to you soon. In fact, I'll speak to you on Monday. I apologize. It's not the map's. The map's not today. It's not the right show for a map. I'll bring that back next Friday. I'll be here with my starting 11 for Crystal Palace. That's going out today. I'll be here tomorrow with my match reaction. I'll be here on Sunday with that interview with the attorney. So maybe, as I said, maybe that's wrong of me to say that. It's not the last time I'll speak about the Mason Greenwood situation, but I'm going to be speaking with the lawyer next. And I'm going to be letting him lead the conversation and stripping opinion out of it, just purely speaking from a factual perspective. I think we all need to understand that a little bit more. And I hope that was the purpose of this video today. I hope it's done that. It's a very difficult conversation to have. But thank you all for tuning in and have a good weekend.